All right, so it's been a minute, but we're finally here, episode 5 of the Super Bob Bros podcast with myself, Joseph, and Josh, my brother. We finally got around to recording one, but I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we had previously recorded another podcast just before this. So while I was editing it, I realized that I really sound like I'm mumbling a fair bit. So my apologies. I just wanted to preface you with all with that, but it still was a really valuable conversation. And so without further ado, enjoy our latest episode of the Super Bob Bros podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Do you like tomato ketchup?
No, I like hot sauce.
Okay, because I think we're about to catch up.
Good thing we didn't go with the hot sauce, because then we have to say something like it's getting spicy in here. I don't know about that for the first comeback episode.
Well, we did order something spicy last night.
We did.
It was
Back
was
in
this morning, was it? No, I don't know.
10 o'clock last night over in Sunnybank, Brisbane. Oh, that's the good thing about being back in Brisbane, eh?
Yeah.
Sunnybank, 10 o'clock at night, anything you want. The Ignite Gaming Cafe, which Jordan just really wanted to go to, but yeah, it was a good night.
I think one of my favorite things about you being a phlegmatic is the fact that
My eyes don't I could be laughing, I could be having a terrible day.
no matter
You'll never
what
know.
emotion you have, your eyes remain the same.
Steady, bro. Steady, calm and collected.
Oh, dude.
You'll never know.
No. Well, I think we're on camera today, which is a bit different. So I'm going to pretend that we're not needing to look at them because we're just talking.
There you go.
So you can see, everyone can see the eyes that I was talking
I
about.
see you.
But
This is cool.
this is cool.
This is the Brown Fox setup. Thank you to our producer, Matt Weston, in the back there.
All good.
Awesome. Yeah, he's on camera. Well, he's not on camera. He's on mic though. But hey, dude, look, I mean, we haven't done this for about 14, 15 months by the sounds of it.
Literally. It's on the screen back here.
The last episode.
Episode 3, September 2021. Episode 4 would have been like December or something.
It says September. Like I'd look it up.
Oh, it's September as well.
Yeah.
Episode 4. No way.
Yeah. So, just I love, consistency in all things. And
You love consistency. We were not consistent, boys.
life got busy, right? So I can't make excuses, but that is the excuse. So, like, dude, what's been going on, man?
Well,
what happened?
Don't know that it was just like busy. I like what you always say. Like, it's not just being busy. Life was full.
I know.
Life was full the last 2 years. Oh, well, it hasn't really been 2 years. How many months was it since then? Like 15 months or something. It's been, it's been pretty full. How's the Brown Fox been in the last 15? What's the progress that's been made? We're in a different building today. Maybe tell us a little bit about the new spot, the new office.
Yeah, I mean, you got the tour before, so you found the toilet, which is always good.
Yeah, easy access.
Yeah, I mean, the
Really good.
last office we had, you couldn't miss it because it's the first thing you saw on the way in. so it was always fun taking clients up the stairs and up. It was always fun taking clients up the shady back staircase going, come to my office.
I have hot sauce.
Cut that out.
Oh, rough, boys.
No, but it was, it was a good season. I mean, no, we hadn't moved. Yeah, you're right. But last episode we filmed, we would have still been there. So we've been in this spot here.
When was the move here?
In January 2022.
Wow.
Correct.
Thank you,
Wow.
Matt. Yeah, Matt was
So I just
part of the
wanted
move.
to-
Fact checking.
It was
fact-checker.
the end of 2021 / start of 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the 3rd of January because it was the day before we had to go for my birthday. So I remember that. And there's also a YouTube video where, again, features Matt. So,
Wowskies.
yeah, anyway, so alongside that, yeah, I mean, and
Nice building. It's a great office space.
yeah, it's been really nice. We moved again in the building, so we've shuffled offices and now it's nice and settled. But look,
Yeah, it took me a second to realize you'd shuffled. I'm like,
yeah,
wasn't the office like a little bit tucked back in the corner?
Yeah,
Then
'cause
you
you
guys just
came
moved
in-
out a little bit.
yeah, because you came here at the start of the year and you saw it, and then we'd swapped. So it's a bit of a mission, but we got through it and then celebrated with some Italian, and Matt had his favorite drink.
Have you boys tried Japanese whiskey before?
Japanese whiskey.
I mean,
I'd say I have.
whiskey to start with. Add in the Japanese whiskey, it went down smooth, and even Joe liked it.
Nice.
Taste.
Whereabouts from?
Japan, No.
Yeah.
It was the Italian place we went to, Marinara's
Oh,
restaurant.
Marinara, yeah.
Yeah. We
It
took
was actually my first time there, but it was great. Food was great, but
Would you say it's your favorite Italian? It's my favorite Italian so
it's
far.
up there. It certainly beats Domino's, that's for sure.
Domino's pizza.
It was really good. It was really good. Yeah, I loved it. Highly recommend.
Awesome. But yeah, no, it's been good. Lots happening. What about you?
Lots has been happening too. It's been a full 2 years. A lot has happened. Man, I don't know where to start.
Yeah,
I feel like it's been such a long time to catch up on everything. Man, there's a lot of learning within just the role that I was in, is like stepping into the role of creative pastoring. And then 2022 was just a huge year of learning things. I feel like that probably is like sums up the last 15 months is just a lot of learning, eh?
Well, we missed an entire year. So like, how do you sum up 2022? Is there a couple of words?
Learning. I feel like honestly, it was just a big year of learning. You step into something new. I stepped into something new. I stepped into pastoring the creative teams over at the church at the Lighthouse back in Rocky. So if you're not familiar, I'm based in Rockhampton. Obviously, Joseph in Brisbane. So yeah, stepping into that new role has been just learning, man. I can't think of any other way from learning how to manage teams, people, interpersonal relationships, staff relationships, like everything is, and it's all heading in a great direction. So it's not that it's been learning and like, oh, it's been terrible or anything. It's been like learning, and everything is, I'm personally just like really grateful that it's all heading in a growth sort of mindset and trajectory within the church, within my role. I'm having to learn so much. Like it's a humbling thing, but it's a good thing having learned so much.
Well, what's the biggest learning?
I think that you don't know when you don't know, and you just got to keep asking, keep being willing to learn, especially when you're starting in something new. Yeah. I think even heading into it, I knew that I wasn't going to know a lot of what was going to come my way in terms of leadership and having to deal with problems on a higher level and having more people bring church issues and that sort of thing to me. I think it kind of weighed a lot on my mental and emotional state to begin with. But I think first heading into it, I had somewhat of an idea, and then you just you learn so much as you go. And
True.
Yeah, man. Big learning experience. It sums up 2022 for me. Learning a new role. I feel like I've said learning about 20 million times. What have you learned in the last year yourself, bro?
Yeah. It's been good.
Not necessarily a new role, but...
No, honestly. Yeah, look, 2022 was definitely a year. The first thing that's coming to mind is that 2022, I wouldn't redo the year. Like as in everything I'm thankful for that happened. I think the main thing that I realize now in retrospect that I think Annie and I are trying to be more intentional about is we really missed community. Yeah. Like in retrospect, like we were 2022 was a very significant year in a lot of stuff. Like we were really pioneering a lot. We still are, but there was a lot of really groundbreaking things that were going on in both of our spheres in our lives. And I think we took a step back from a lot of community, intentionally, in terms of like we couldn't commit to stuff as much as we usually did. Like in the year before that, we were running a Connect group, and the year before that, we were running a Connect group at church. And like, even though I see people all the time and I talk to people and I have a great team, it was something missing in terms of just hanging out, and I feel like this year we've still the beginning, but we've started, we were talking about it yesterday. It was like, you were in the car, I think. It's just like, it was like we felt, if we're being vulnerable, we felt like we didn't have tons of friends. Yeah. Because that was the stage of life we had been in. It's like we were just we were serving, we were working, but that was our full focus on a lot of areas. And then this year, it's like we just started to like open the tap and go, I think we're going to try and make a little bit of effort. And all of a sudden, we're like hanging out all the time.
Open the tap.
With everyone. And then we're like,
hose bro.
Oh, maybe we do have friends. We just haven't put enough effort into it.
That's crazy. I feel like there's a lot of, even within personal and within the church back in Rocky, it's almost the opposite learning, but learning the same thing about community. Because last year when I was saying I'm learning so much, one of the things we were tackling was just like the thought of rest last year, and what does rest look like for us as individuals, and feeling within a church context like you're serving and feeling ready and rested enough to serve. And last year, I think we learned a lot. I learned a lot about rest and a lot about the power of intentional rhythms of rest.
Yeah.
But then part of my learnings, especially heading into this year, which seems to be very similar with almost what you guys have done, is you pull back on community. I think the lack of being in group culture ourselves within a church context, started to show up. And heading into this year, one of the things we are focusing on within our church context is the power of groups and community. Because even looking back at last year, we were always questioning, like, how do we serve from a place where we feel rested? How do we serve from a place where we've got the drive, the passion, the energy, and we love what we do. Like, we love creative work, we love serving, we love these things. But it was interesting that at the end of the year, even some of the sentiment around team is, okay, we're still feeling somewhat exhausted after a whole year of like stripping back on certain things, simplifying things. Why could that be? And then heading into this year, something that we're all heading towards as a church community, and our lead pastors, God's put on his heart for us to refocus on groups and the power of community. And we were thinking about it like, community should be life-giving. And if it's done well, like if there's a good community and the way that things are done within community is done well, it shouldn't be something that you feel is like I got to do it. I got to do it. It's got to be I get to do it. I get to be part of it. And so I guess like even within our context this year, reevaluating how much priority we're putting on serving over community, and the power of being community in order to have the energy and the life and the people to fuel ministry and to fuel serving. So there's a bit of a mentality shift that we're learning, exploring around community. So it's interesting that you guys have kind of stepped back from community to some degree to free up time, and then there's that longing for community coming back. In our context, we never fully all locked into like a strong community groups culture in church, and so this year it's like that's something we're exploring together.
It makes a difference. Like, it makes a huge difference. I think that when we were in community, it was always like, it felt like a lot. Like it felt like, a lot of commitment when you have jobs and you have the relationship, marriage, and then you got work and then you got everything. It felt like an extra thing to have to do, but then you realize it's one of those things, like when it's gone, you may not realize in the moment, but it kind of like does chew away at you. I think for me, I thought as you were speaking, I thought, I always say to people that it's good to have a bit of a rule of thirds in terms of your people surrounding yourself. So if you have a third of the people who are ahead of you in the journey,
Ty Lopez, baby.
third of you, is that from Ty?
That's what I remember. Yeah.
From.
Sorry, can I just interject? Because I literally just listened to episode 3 of the Brown Fox podcast, and you literally talked about that exact thing, the thirds.
Rule of 33.
Like, I literally just listened to that.
That's funny. That's funny because the third in the middle where it's your peers and the people you feel like you can be comfortable with, and then the third of people in your life where you're investing into. And I feel like, in all honesty, the last year or year and a half, I probably actually missed the entire middle section.
Wow.
And I didn't realize the impact of that until you start feeling that you don't have people like when you need it.
Wow.
It was actually like towards the end of last year, I was kind of, if we were being vulnerable and talking about the journey, towards the end of last year, I was going through a couple months where like the business was actually in its biggest growth stage at that point, but I was feeling very, I don't want to say depressed. Like it wasn't, I don't feel like I could have said that. But I feel like all signs was like, I actually was like, am I burning out? Is this like what I should be doing? And I think a huge missing element was actually community. And in the moment, I couldn't put my finger on it. I was, in my personal walk at the moment, I've been very consistent with my Bible reading and prayer time and, spending time with the Lord. But the actual missing thing was being around people.
Yeah. Well, even like if you're someone of faith and like you look at Genesis, there's a man-shaped hole, there's a human-shaped hole in our hearts. Like when God created man, he said that it was not good, that they should be alone. So there's that need for human interaction and community. And it's interesting that you talked about the rule of 33. I feel like it's the same thing for like myself in the last year, reassessing the thirds. I feel like I had a strong middle third with like the people that I was serving with. Like it was almost my groups. It was almost my group. And then I had a good amount of people that I was somewhat still being able to pour into. But then I was looking around at like my upper third, and it's like the reason why I feel like I'm not able to answer a lot of the questions downwards is because I'm not plugged into people that can support me with the things that are coming up and some things that I don't have the answers to. Like having that connection upwards and having the third pour into you is pretty vital as well, and it's something that I'm addressing this year. And
it's awesome that we're kind of identified that, because we're both realized that we've missed a third.
Yeah. And so I'm this past like couple months just been trying to plug upwards, get insight, get advice, get wisdom, because I think that principle of in the Proverbs where it talks about in the multitude of counselors is safety when it comes to like decisions, and I'm talking about like I'm new to so much, I'm learning so much, and when I'm learning so much, it's either you make mistakes yourself or you learn from the experience of others and you learn from the wisdom of others. So that principle of wise counsel and a multitude of counselors has been in my thirds like so important.
Oh man, this is a cool chat, because again, being vulnerable about everything. It's like, for me, when I was feeling those feelings, at the same time, I think what happened was in my journey, I was really, how do I say, like it was literally a back and forth swing of probably pride plus imposter syndrome, which is probably still pride. So at the end of the day, it's probably like some measure of pride where it's like, I'm doing something here. Like, I wouldn't say it probably, but inside I'm like, I'm doing something. So I don't have time to associate with people that aren't doing something. But then I kind of I genuinely forgot that we're actually all humans. Like at the end of it, we're not defined by what we do. We're not defined by anything other than, we're not defined. We shouldn't be defined by our occupation. We should be defined by this. And I feel like I had to only associate with people who were doing the same thing, which you have to. But I completely blocked out just the chance to connect with people on like last night. Like, dude, we're all just hanging out laughing. I hadn't had that for about 18 months.
That's crazy.
I don't know. It sounds weird to say, but it's like
the need for community with everyone. Everyone's kind of got a place. Everyone has a place, hey, like regardless of where you stand with work-life balance and all. Like you're saying, I've got to associate myself with the same types of people, but you learn from everyone, eh? You learn from everyone.
Yeah. And so I think that's been the journey, genuinely. So that, community is and should be a big part of this year.
Yeah. So for us, like we're really revisiting that idea of like community within our church context and trying to place the priority on that this year. So even within serving, like are we encouraging people to not just be serving, but also be in community? Like it's interesting. I was chatting with Ben, our lead pastor, and he was saying like, even within our context, because we love serving and we love the teams that we're a part of, we're always naturally, when we see someone like, oh, you should jump in and serve with us, which is a great thing because it is a good thing to do. It is a great thing to serve, but it's interesting that like even within our context, the first response was, oh, come join this team, let's serve together. And why isn't it that it's like, let's come into my home, like let's do life together. Get in a group with someone, let's connect together. It was just an interesting thought and question, like why have we, in our case anyway, been like, so heavy about jump in, let's serve together first. Like, why is that the first thing? And I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Like, it's a great, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's like, which is the best thing? Like, which one's going to produce the best outcome? Because you can still get community through serving. So there's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, it's interesting that we'd come to a culture where our priority really is serving. And you could see it within our church context, like it's been the big push over groups. And we were like, why do we feel drained at the end of the year? Like, even though we're quote unquote, like doing less and serving less, is it because of the lack of community and the wrong priority, meaning that we're more drained and we don't have that, like, groups should be life-giving? It's a big bag, eh?
Dude,
it's a big can of worms.
I again didn't know. We have no idea where these conversations are going.
It seems like with community is the theme of this podcast already.
Yeah, it's. Look, I can't even pretend to know an answer to that. I feel like it takes someone much older and wiser and who's done it well. Because again, I'm just sharing from my journey that I'm telling you, I didn't do it well last year.
But even looking at Hillsong, which is where you've been attending, right? Even looking at the way that they've structured things and hearing about the group's culture there, like the groups are so like valued, and then they become serving, like they become catalysts for serving, is what I've seen anyway. And I could be wrong with the model, but like if you're in a connect group, then eventually like that connect group gets an opportunity to serve together. Therefore, the serving flows out of that community as well.
Look, I think there's if we're talking about, again, church context there, I think it's undeniable that serving is like the best place to form relationships. So like, there's no better way to form relationships than in the trenches. But I think what you said before is kind of like hit me a little bit, where it's like, when did it become just about the things we do and not coming to meet people and just talking about how's everything else? I think it's because what's coming to my mind is that we spend our lives doing things. So we naturally are talking about the things we're doing. And so what are you doing? Like, how do you start a conversation with someone? How do you start a conversation with someone by going, how are you? How's your soul?
Yeah.
How's your
so important. It's
like, different.
It is like the whole concept of like human beings,
how
like
are
human
you?
doings.
Good, bad, terrible.
This is crazy because like this is stuff that I've been like personally just like super challenged and pulled towards since the start of this year. And I kind of talked to you about it, where it's like identity before actions, and it's like your identity fuels your actions. Therefore, within like the context of groups, it provides an opportunity to like address the soul, address your being. And then when you look at scriptures from a church context, when you look in the scriptures, and it talks about, unless you abide in me, you can't do anything. You can do nothing. Yeah. And it's like that state of being. Abiding is just being. So being first abiding and having that identity in who you are, and that within our context is like our identity is in Christ. And that's what we've landed on. That's our common ground between the two of us. Like, if our root identity is in Christ, then who we are fuels what we do. So the priority of getting identity right first then shapes why you do what you do. And I think even within church context, if it's all about the doing first, that's where like, sorry, this is getting a bit Bible heavy, but like heading into Revelations in the church of Ephesus, they were doing, and then God said, you've lost your first love. And it's like, you've lost just being with me, just being. And that concept of abiding first, then what you do should be more fruitful, because it says that you'll bear more fruit. When you abide in me, you will bear more fruit. Yeah. So this is all.
Look, dude, like, I think look, this is our podcast, right? We're just chatting, and we're unapologetically talking about what we do and what we believe in. So I mean, like, that's, to me, like, you've answered. I've just been sitting here just kind of like knocking my head around a little bit, going, you've literally just answered what I've been thinking, what I've been wondering. And the conviction, like, it is pride. Like, as in, it is pride. Except by definition, pride is just putting anything, a sin is putting anything in front of God. And pride is just, again, putting yourself in front of God. And so I think on a very, very, very deep level that I'm just picturing at the moment is, yeah, like as soon as we want to mention status or mention our activity, like we're already out of position. Our identity is already just, it's not in the right place because it's reflecting our action. So it's like, I'm going circles a bit because I'm literally thinking out loud. It's
Identity.
like, how do we all get into community to help each other with our identity? Like what does that look like?
Well, I think it's intentional community, like even within a church context, because I obviously work in a church, so I'm going to be talking heavily about like the thought process behind church context. Within that, like, what is the purpose of a group? And like we've been wrestling with that. Like, is groups more about connection? Is it more about Bible? Is it more about fun? Is it more like, what is it about? And I think teaching, not teaching, but encouraging intentional conversations around our identity is probably something that even in this conversation, we don't have all the answers, but I feel like that is worth exploring, that's worth exploring in thought, in conversation, in practice, being intentional with community that is focused on improving and like actually getting down to who we are and our identity is like a priority.
So really like in this, to maybe it's oversimplifying, but groups exist. In general, groups exist because there's people who have a similar like-minded thought on something, or share a similar passion or a similar hobby or something. So the purpose of groups, ideally, are we saying here, to oversimplify, the purpose of groups within church is to get down to just extreme vulnerability about our identities and trying to help each other to get our identities right.
Yeah, I suppose so. Like it wouldn't be like, as with anything, you work into it and like.
As in, is that the goal where we're in community and kind of like being, what's your thought?
I don't have all the answers, but I reckon like that's effective. Like that would be effective because it depends what the goal of the group is. And I think that's why like it's great to have different groups in your life. Like if you're musically inclined, get in a band, get in a group, because then that interest and everything and the people around that, you all have that the momentum of multiple people moving in the same direction. And then there's groups for all sorts of different things. But I think when it comes to who you are as a person and trying to do life better and trying to walk life with less mistakes, less regrets, and just trying to figure that out, I think that's where the faith community and getting in a faith-based group can help with that. And I think that's where we as the church have to be better at being intentional about what goes on in groups. And we're still exploring this as a church, so we do not have all the answers, but a lot of conversations happening around it.
Yeah, and by default, I suppose when you get to the more vulnerable parts of your life, that's when you build trust and lasting relationships, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing that I've been just like fascinated about is like, maybe it's just because, again, I'm trying to figure out how to do it well, is that the older you get and the more advanced your life stage get, it just feels harder. It just feels like it's getting harder to maintain community.
Yeah.
Like without being intentional. It's like when we had, it's so obvious, but when we had more disposable time, you would just hang out with people.
Do you reckon we've gone through the book, like I've put you on it and I've gone through it, it's been a critical book within my mindset around this sort of thing. Ruthless Elimination in a Hurry. Do you reckon the concepts of that book is like
this book once or twice before?
Oh, it's a goodie. Has Joe got you onto it, bro?
No, I haven't read it yet, but he's mentioned a few times. I definitely should read it for sure.
Yeah, well, it challenged me a lot, and I think a lot of my framework of my mind around rest, work, space, that sort of thing, it helped a lot. It helped me get on a healthier mindset around doing. And it's like, maybe is that because you're coming back to your tension? Is the tension because it's not actively addressed? Like, if you're not actively addressing, why am I doing what you're doing? You were talking about like identity. It's like my identity, like you were saying, like could be in like rooted in a prideful place. Like, I'm not saying that's where you are right now, but you're saying like, oh, my identity could be in a prideful place where it is about like accomplishment and accolades. So you do to have that identity, and then you lose out on having space for the things that actually matter most. Obviously, you got to do things well. You got to do things excellently. But I think hearing that, like, within different stages of life, surely it's just upon like the most basic premise, it's you're doing more than you should and you don't have the space for the things that matter most.
What matters most?
That was a very long-winded answer, but to me, what matters most, for me, being a person of faith is getting that Christ-centered life right, because from that flows everything about who I am and everything that I do. So getting that right, and then people/family is the second priority.
Yeah.
Because obviously how you deal and live for people and for your family, especially family being the most important unit to society. If a family is raised and is equipped right, then they're more effective as a unit within society. If you're serving others well, if you're putting time for others. So priorities would be God, people, and then work. That's how I've kind of landed on it. If the things you're working on mean that you have the detriment of your family or the detriment of your relationship with God, relationship with family, relationship with God, then something's out of whack. It seems to be that a lot of issues and a lot of big problems come when family isn't done right, or in our case, like we believe when your faith life isn't done right. It seems like problems occur from our, like, you know how you have out of control problems that come into your life and then problems that are in your control. It seems like more issues, stress, and problems come when you don't get those two things right. And then in order to get those two things right, you got to have space for it.
So what have you done to create space to do it right?
Oh, I have not done it right. But personally, like, non-negotiable is like a big word that, listening to like Craig Rochelle, he's a incredible leader, incredible lead pastor of a church that's like pioneered the biggest like app for the Bible ever. He's got multi-campus. So this guy's figured out, he's got a lot of things going for him. But he talked about within routines and rhythms and priorities, the things that should be priority, non-negotiable. So for me, one thing that I've gotten fairly solidified is just my non-negotiable routine of in the morning having a quiet time to put first things first.
Yep.
And I can't say I've got the people and family thing perfect, and I haven't even got the God stuff perfect. Like,
I think what we're both exploring here at the moment, like between the two of us, is that, again, we're not gonna get perfect, but I feel like both of us have, let's just agree to say that we've got a solid foundation on the initial faith part. Faith part.
That's what we've chosen.
Let's at least call that
as our foundation.
Yeah. And I think we're struggling with the people and family a bit.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy to think. Sometimes I ramble on and, like, as you've kind of singled down to what it is.
I'm not saying, again, we're not saying that that's perfect at all, but I feel like that's what I was wondering. I'm like, to myself, I'm like, oh, why does it feel like I've got this part? Like, apparently it's the core. Why does everything still feel a bit off? I'm like, okay, I've clearly missed some people and family stuff.
And it comes down to, I guess, intentionality with time, like boundaries and things. I was chatting with Jeremy, who's like our network pastor at the church, and he's like, once I've left work, because he's got his family and he's got like 5 girls, his kids and his wife, and he's like, once I've left work, man, I'm with the family. I'm with them. Yeah. Like I don't think about work anymore. And so some people seem to have seem to have a good grasp of boundaries. Yeah. And he, like, hearing his conversation, it's like that boundary is set. So like once, and you've talked about this, like your priorities in the moment being like a spoke, and like when you're at work, the spoke of work is your priority. But then when it's people and family time. Yeah. When that spoke lands, that's the ideal. 100%. Yeah. That's the goal. So, I think the struggle that I can. I got something to jump. Yeah. Well, do you want to go to you first? No, I think I'm not making excuses, but it's not. There's no excuse. It's just a statement of where I'm at. It's like,
something to be said about this is really tough for a small business owner. Like it's a very specific context because work, that whole idea of work shutting off, it's like trying to go walk outside and not see the sun. It's like, I don't know. I can't think of any other. I can think of all sorts of metaphors. It's like go close to the ocean, not get wet. It's like, because it's the stage of life.
Yeah, the season calls
and the
for
season calling. It's like it is nigh impossible to turn off. So the boundaries are it's a tricky thing. It's like so tricky. And so I it's hard.
Yeah, that's tough because the thing that I was going to mention next was the concept of not overloading yourself so that the not the external people, but say like family and your people are your priority.
Yeah.
But when other things and people come along, it's interesting when you are too busy, like the people that come across your path that you could help and things we tend to push them away because we are still too busy. So not even just family, but just when a need comes, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, at times I'll feel like I'm too busy to address that. And so I'll not acknowledge it. I'll kind of focus on my work rather than the person. And even when just the basic act of actually having conversations with people, being slow enough to hear people and actually share a moment with someone, it's all like, and it all comes back to like the hurry, like, which is why that book, man, it's still messing and still wrestling with how it looks. So, but when you're too hurried, you won't slow down to stop for the person that's in front of you that may not be your family, but still may be someone that needs you in that moment.
The tension that I feel is that, if I was to try and put words to it, is that I operate in a space and a type of life where you get taught things and like you get taught ways to look at, like here's an example. You're working, say it's work specifically. So you got to be able to say no to everything. Like that's just like a blanket rule, like as in to say in a season, like I got to be able to, everything's an automatic no. Like that, like a phrase like that, which is a really great, like motivational business entrepreneurship thing. You got to make sure you know priorities. So where does the space come to be, like you said, to have that conversation that's not in my time block right now. Like if you hear high performers, this is the thing I'm struggling with all the time. You hear high performers, even if they're Christian or not, doesn't matter. They'll say the same stuff. You just tell people to, your calendar. So if it's not there, you should not allow people to interfere. If you have a productive, deep work, you know where I'm going with this, where it's like you get taught a lot about efficiency and a lot about how to be a high performer. And I feel like a lot of that flushes out the human, can we care in the moment? So is it like, I don't know where I'm going with this, to be honest, but it's kind of like you carry that throughout your day. It's really, to me, it's like my answer now is like, maybe I have to try and learn how to switch it off.
Yeah.
And when to switch it off.
Well, it's like, okay, so even the idea of efficiency and saying no in the right context is healthy. I guess like when it becomes super self-centered, I think where someone needs you, I think I'm approaching it from a personal like needs thing, not so much a business thing. So if a business opportunity comes up that you could do, that's not the thing you should do. Like I guess that's like apply the no principle. But I'm personally just thinking about like when it comes time to be a good person, and it's like the opportunity to do good comes along, and you're too hurried and too busy to actually be a good person for someone that needs you. That's kind of where I'm.
That's the tension, because I have like, as in I'm not naturally like this, but I've had to learn. My learned behavior, again, in starting and running business, is you have to move fast and make fast decisions, and you have to be like, and so if people are trying to vie for your attention, you have to kind of go, and then caught up in that, sometimes that happens where a personal thing comes through, and then it's off to the side.
I think like it's interesting where cultures push that, and maybe we're adopting a lot of culture, and there's good to it, but when you look at the life of Jesus and the way that he was documented, like he was never too in a hurry to acknowledge when someone came across his path that needed him.
That's good.
And I think if we're always too hurried to ever acknowledge when someone needs us or when we need to be present, he was moving he was full, his life was busy.
Yeah.
But he was never too hurried to have a moment with someone when they needed him. I think
Yeah. Thanks for the,
because no, honestly, that was something that for a while, in my own pursuit of efficiency and that sort of thing, I'm not saying that I've got it more than you or anything either, bro, but it's something that was always in the back of my head, kind of convicting me, like, if this guy like needs me to help him move something, say something like, just needs me to go over to his place, help me. If I can never say yes to those things because I'm always doing, in my case, like the work of God, like I always felt like I was using it as a cop out to not always, but like it almost became like efficiency was the cop out and like productivity was the cop out to pushing aside other people's needs.
Yeah.
And I think Jesus set a really good example of being full, but not being hurried. And I think that's why that book really connects with me, because it's like, it does make sense. It all comes down to like a feeling of hurry, and that pace of hurriedness really makes it hard to slow down enough for people and make the time for them, because you're anxious about your own things because you're living at a pace of hurry. And if you don't get your things right, and it becomes a self-centered thing, like we're hurried about our own things. We're busy about our own things. I don't know, man. It's like an open, like I'm still figuring all of this out, and I don't want to come at this as the arbiter of truth, because
this is like, hopefully people, if they are listening to the podcast, it's like, we're just talking. We're literally just talking and trying to unpack our thoughts together.
But that's a good resource, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I think if you want to explore this yourself, that's really rocked me, that book. And I don't know if you can say the same for yourself, but
I still, grasp at the concepts from, and that's the thing, right? It's seasons. But like every time we talk about something like this, the thing that comes to my mind is, thanks to, if you want to blame Adam and Eve or whoever, just thanks to fallen nature of the world. It's like we are in this endless loop of we just suck at everything until hopefully we get enough wisdom. By that time we're going to pass away, and then it's like, well, hopefully the next generation got enough from us to try and do it again. Because I feel like even what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I thought I learned that 3 years ago. No, apparently I did it.
Yeah.
Like, because the current of life in the world, like it really is a current. It just kind of sweeps you. And I think that's where, like for me personally, like I hope that people aren't listening to this guy. Man, Joe's like just absolutely hopeless at like, I'm just being vulnerable, to be honest. As I'm like, the thing that I can say hand on heart is that the thing that's gotten me, like, directed me is that, every single day I will, without fail, I will get up and I will start my day with the word and prayer. It's my non-negotiable, and it's a streak that I intend not to break. And I probably will at some stage because I'm human, but I intend not to. And I kind of go, in my learnings, I have learned a lot at the beginning of each day that has taught me how to operate in that day. Yet the day comes throughout the day, and then you just like, it's a constant, like I love the pause app that we do, because there's a line in the pause app that it's the line that I grasp. It's like, restore my union with you. It's like in that moment, like throughout the day I've gotten far.
Yeah.
I may have started well throughout the day, but I maybe have a chance to, at certain moments, like just remember to reunite with the Lord. And maybe in that moment I'll get back to it again, and then I'll probably, and then it's every day until we die.
Yeah.
Like, life is hard, man.
Yeah. It makes it so much softer. Like you don't feel as guilty about it when you realize, hey man, like in scripture, even like the Apostle Paul, and that's where he wrote it, like the things I want to do, I never do. Oh, no, I never do. I don't do. And then the things I want to do, oh, did I already say that? The things I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, that's what I do instead.
Yeah.
And I think we can kind of find rest in like, in not having the pressure of being perfect, because we're all on this journey just constantly, and it's a constant coming back to Christ, constant coming back to humility. We don't have this figured out. As soon as we think we do, that's when like the next thing comes to humble us.
I think there's a lot to be said about the day-to-day life is you know, it's hard, but you know, at the end of the day, like all the characters in scripture, they like, I always go back to like the hall of faith in Hebrews, where, you know, you read through someone's story and then, you know, they clearly had a bit of a journey, but in Hebrews they remembered for that one or two things, and that was the output of their life in scripture. Is like they were known to be in that hall of faith because they did that. Like they had this legacy. I kind of go, that's kind of like maybe this day-to-day learning of stuffing up and whatever. It's a day-to-day thing, but hopefully in the long run, there's one or two things out of my life, or two things out of my life that might last long enough. Yeah. For the next generation.
That's good, eh?
Yeah. Oh, what a fun chat. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, there's many things we could talk about. I think like even maybe one thing I'd like to even just go into as a final thing. Yeah. It doesn't have to be super deep, but you were talking about like your non-negotiable of every day. You do this one thing, which is for you like getting up and having a quiet time of devotion and prayer and that sort of thing. I've been reading the book Atomic Habits, which is also another great book. And it's like the compounding interest of the small decision every single day. Eventually, likewise with money, he talks about compound interest, putting away that certain amount of money every time, consistently compounds over time. Are there any things this year that you've kind of decided to add on to that? I guess like you've got a non-negotiable. Are there any habits that you're working on this year that's like...
just life habits. I'm currently...
Just habits and
gym routine.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Hey. Well, he beat me to it. Yeah, I mean, I'm still on a successful streak. Every time I say that I really like streaks, it sounds like I like streaking. So that's probably not the best way. But I'm a sucker for streaks. Yeah. Like I am the person that they make loyalty cards and streaks for. Because if I can keep a streak going, I'm like, it's just fulfilling to me. So at the moment,
were you that guy on Snapchat back in the day doing streaks?
Actually, that's the one thing that I never really got into.
Good.
But that's obviously where it started, right? Like the whole streaks thing. No, so the I guess one keystone or whatever you want to call it, habit that I've just continued to do and just see how long it goes for is I just do an hour of exercise every day.
Every day, eh? That's really good.
And that exercise isn't necessarily high intensity, but you know, it can be a walk or it can be stretching. Oh yeah, that's been a game changer. That is a game changer.
Which one? The older I get. Walk or the stretching or
the stretching. The like that is an absolute game changer. But anyway, so that's probably the main thing. I'm maintaining a pretty high consistency on reading 10 pages a day. I'd say it's probably 90-something% at the moment because I kind of like, not that I don't value it as much as the exercise, but I've kind of, I don't know, my coach told me I have to stop learning too much because I keep, as in I take too many sources of information. I need to just try and focus on a couple. And
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So I read, still keep the reading habit up, but I'm trying not to overindulge in too much information.
That's fair enough, because even like within the context we were talking yesterday about like disc profile and like temperaments and that sort of thing, it's like there's so many different angles of approach to the same sort of goal. It's like when you got that many angles of approach, like you don't need to study all of them, like just apply one.
The only angle approach is just do something and just do it. Like
consistency.
Just do it. My principle, I don't say it all the time, but if people care to know my thought about anything, is my personal principle is I may not be the most talented at something, I may not be whatever, but I will outwork you. Like I will just show up every day. And so I think that's like you said, the compounding interest. So it doesn't matter what it is. Like I think you just got to just do it. Like not that I have no empathy. I have no empathy. Actually, it's my least strength. I thought I was empathetic until the strengths finder. It turned out it was number 34 out of 34 strengths. My biggest weakness, empathy. But I kind of go, just got to do it. Anyway.
No, that's good.
You're empathetic.
That's good.
Man. You're empathetic.
I am. Pathetic and empatheticness.
Matty, is there something that you've got, bro?
Yeah, what's yours?
Something this year?
Nah, just leave it to you boys. I just want to say this has been an amazing chat. Like, honestly.
I don't even know what we've talked about.
Well, that's what it was. I just like had the conversation.
Dude, even just
Catch up.
Just being in this room, and I'm sure I will listen back to it. But I've just,
I'm really worried about what we talked about because I don't even remember what we've just talked about.
Yeah, that's
okay. If I was to say one quick thing before we end, I know no one can see me right now, but that's all right. The thing, going back to when you're talking about community, I feel like, in 2022, I even sort of, for whatever reasons, few personal things, work, whatever it might be, I actually, kind of lacked in that community aspect as well. And towards the end of 2022 and 2023, I've just sort of started, going to night church service a bit more, which then leads to going out for dinner then and hanging out till midnight with you boys, and surrounding myself with other awesome, people. And I used to do a lot of that, a few years ago, but I kind of dropped off a little bit. And so, surrounding myself with people again, it's refreshing, and it highlights how important it is in the world that we live in the craziness of life. Like, life is tough, but Christ number one, but number two, people and community. It just makes it so much better. So that's all I wanted to say for now. And but thanks again, boys, for the chat. That was really good. Yeah.
Thanks, producer Matt.
Producer Matt.
Awesome.
Couldn't do this without producer Matt. So
No, he set the whole thing up.
yeah, hard work. I really appreciate that.
But what about you before we shut off?
Oh, well, actually, it's a bit convicting in some sense as well, because we're talking about staying consistent with certain habits. And there's a few that I've set out to this year, and I haven't been perfectly consistent, but I've been a lot better than last year. So fitness is one of them. So having like every week at least 3 to 4 days that I'm doing some sort of exercise. So fitness, and then reading. But reading's been something that has kind of been the weaker one of the two. And it's got me thinking about something that I think Craig Rochelle said, where it's like, I don't know if it was something he said or someone mentioned it to me, like he focuses on one habit every year, just one, not two. Don't do two, don't do three, just one. Because when you think about your life, if these are just keystone habits, like if you can get the one right 1 year, move to the next year, like it means that you're gonna get it right. And then it's like the overestimating what you can do in 1 year, underestimating what you can do in 10. So even as I'm reviewing it, as I'm looking back at the first 2 months of the year, I'm trying not to be too guilty about not getting the reading stuff perfectly locked in. It's like, if I'm going to get one right first, let's just nail the first one, and then we'll address the second one. But those are the two things, fitness and reading, which you've been aware of for like the last year. I've mentioned it to you last year as well. It's like, I want to get better at these things, but I hadn't set the routines in place. Yeah. So those are the two things.
Yeah, I feel validated about the one habit thing now. So
it's freeing, the principle of the one thing.
No, just one. Yeah, it's true. Dude, if we talk again in the next, whenever we do this, maybe we should talk about, there is a topic I think would be cool, because we talked about it at the start of the year. We won't talk about it now because we're going to close up, but about the goals that we set for the year and why they're not necessarily just the usual goals. Yeah. Like, even though it's like now going to be from February, March, I think it's still a great topic. Like talking about why we selected certain goals. Yeah, and then even just catching up about how it's all going and everything. Yeah. It all ties back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier about identity and who you are, fueling what you're doing, that sort of thing. So, good chat, man. We'll have to do it again soon, eh? Yes, hopefully not next year. Hopefully. The last one was 2021, so we'll try to beat the 15 months. Yes. Keep it within there. 15, 14, 13, 12. We'll get better. We'll keep it within 15 weeks, eh? Next week, boys. Next week. Come on. Maybe we can share accountability. Gosh. Maybe we can one day share a retirement home and we'll just podcast every day. I'd be down for that, bro. It's always good, man. I feel like I've become a better person every time I'm chatting with you, so why not spend my retirement becoming better? Good chat, boy. It's the Super Bob Bro signing out. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Repping the brand. Bye.